So, there's a Japanese miniseries that I discovered a bajillion years ago that, for some reason, I always kind of randomly flash back to. It imprinted itself on my brain all those years ago after kinda low-key traumatizing me with its eccentric yet haunting minisodes. At first glance, you might assume that it was a silly children's show, but on a deeper level, it's definitely bordering nightmare fuel. The series centers around a homeless man living in an alley full of garbage and his daily adventures that start out with him simply rummaging through the random junk. Every episode begins with him discovering something curious in the garbage heap that ignites a chain of events which somehow, without a doubt, would spiral egregiously out of control. Have you heard of Mr. Stain on Junk Alley? Mr. Stain on Junk Alley is such a weird yet mesmerizing show that once started, I guarantee you'll have a hard time turning away from. Written by Ryuji Masuda, the creator of Poppy the Performer, a show I am not familiar with at all, Mr. Stain on Junk Alley ran from January 2003 until March 2003. There are a total of 14 episodes. Most of the episodes are pretty short, being around 7 minutes long. The final episode, titled Harmonica, is significantly longer, being about 30 minutes. It also serves as the bizarre conclusion of the series. Mr. Stain on Junk Alley stands out due to its unconventional and uncanny nature, both in its computer animated design and storyline. Each of these short episodes features dark comedic scenarios with humor that relies on exaggerated physical actions, slightly violent, and often in a chaotic or absurd manner. We often see characters being blown up, crushed, or even sometimes eaten by other creatures and cast of the show. And despite how disturbing, most of the time it's played up as humor. Despite the humor, what stuck out to me was how there is always an unsettling grimness or sadness to the show. Most episodes consist of the bizarre cast illustrating a story with heavy, heart-achy themes like sacrifice, insanity, loneliness, and death. I think the show's overall dark tones paired with the colorful illustrations are what I find most intriguing about the series. I like its juxtapositions, and I really like the way the series conveys its plot, character, and heavy emotions while being nonverbal. The show is essentially a pantomime. None of the characters speak, and there aren't any subtitles or narration. They may grunt, wail, scream, or battle cry, but as viewers, we rely strictly on the visual storytelling, body language, and exaggerated physical actions to interpret the narrative and emotions. As well as the music. The music is another piece of what makes this show so special. The series has an extensive track list of really nice music orchestrated throughout each episode. Some of it is used to play up the characters' antics, similar to Looney Tunes, but honestly, comparing it to that would be an understatement because the original soundtrack is really good. I especially like the harmonica tune featured in the series finale, as well as the finale's outro song titled Giri Giri Surf Rider. That song is my favorite of the series. Both of the series outros are performed by the J-pop duo How Cali. Both outro songs are so upbeat and fun, they practically make you forget you were just visually scarred a few moments ago from a super sad, gut-punching episode. But like I was saying, the silent yet expressive form of communication adds to the eerie and unsettling atmosphere of the show, while at the same time making it charming in a sense. I'm very conflicted in my feelings about the show. I like it, but it still creeps me out. Each episode is titled after an item that Mr. Stain finds in the junk pile at the beginning. At first, these items seem harmless, like a fishing rod, crayons, a cassette tape, or a portrait. What makes the show exciting is how these seemingly innocent objects ultimately lead to Mr. Stain's demise. He gets himself into very real, life-threatening situations, or even predicaments that seem to drive him insane. It's hard to judge what kind of man Mr. Stain is. He's obviously very resourceful and inventive. He can be selfish, but a lot of the time it's just him putting his basic needs first in order to survive. He can also be very sensitive and kind. I would say he's a very morally gray character with a loud conscience. At times, we see glimpses of Mr. Stain's humanity and compassion. In episodes like Heavenly Bird, he desperately tries to help characters who end up in the junk alley. However, other times he becomes obsessive and a bit manic, as seen in the episode Portrait, where his actions lead to disastrous consequences. Most of the heavier episodes end with Mr. Stain making a really difficult decision or sacrifice. The sillier episodes are typically involving a childish competition between him and another character, and there are even some that end happily with Mr. Stain finding a peaceful resolution for the plot. Because of the show's overall humor, I always wonder if the heavy themes that stick out to me are intentional. It feels like Mr. Stain lives within his own world in the junk alley. The brief opening introduces a bustling city-like atmosphere, indicating that the junk alley is located within a larger, modern urban environment. And we see as a backdrop during most episodes that the junk alley is surrounded by numerous buildings and skyscrapers. As the camera zooms into where the episodes take place, the noise and activity of the city, such as the people walking by, provide a stark contrast to the stillness of Mr. Stain's alley. The junk alley can be seen as a metaphor for Mr. Stain's life. It's a forgotten or overlooked spot in the city, parallel to a stain in the sense that it's something that people would rather not deal with. People walk by it without paying attention, tossing their trash away and moving on, just as they do with Mr. Stain himself. It implies that Mr. Stain is largely ignored or forgotten by society, which is definitely something I find reflective of real-life society. We don't see Mr. Stain engage much with the outside world. He rarely leaves the alley, and when interactions with outsiders do happen, they are often negative or unpleasant. This isolation highlights his role as an outsider, someone marginalized in the larger social structure. In essence, it feels like Mr. Stain exists as a figurative stain or blemish within the busy life of the city, unnoticed, isolated, and ignored by most people around him. However, while the junk alley might initially appear to be a depressing, neglected space in the busy city, it is also a place where magical, supernatural, and extraordinary elements thrive. This juxtaposition between the mundane and magical gives the alley an enchanting, mysterious quality despite its outward appearance. And that's both the plot and charm of the series. The junk alley where Mr. Stain lives mirrors aspects of real-world neglect, loneliness, and being overlooked. This makes his life seem ordinary and even depressing, similar to situations where people are discarded or ignored in society. Despite the grim atmosphere, there's a supernatural or magical quality to the alley. The items Mr. Stain finds, initially appearing mundane or normal, turn out to possess magical or otherworldly properties. This suggests that beneath the surface of neglect and poverty, there's something extraordinary offering hope or mystery in an otherwise dreary setting. And although for the majority of the series, Mr. Stain is the only human resident of the alley, there are others who live there. The other characters or creatures of the junk alley aren't just ordinary individuals. They too possess paranormal or supernatural features. This enhances the sense that the alley is not just a forgotten space, but also a place where the impossible or unusual exists, adding a layer of wonder and intrigue. The series features multiple characters, with many appearing in at least one episode, some even getting episodes dedicated to them. Certain characters like Rings reappear in different episodes as a reoccurring gag, while others are subtly hidden in the background. Interestingly, all the characters who appear throughout the series are included in the ending theme, which, despite the show's dark tone, is surprisingly fun and quirky. Another key character in the show is Palvan, a giant bipedal stray cat with a disturbingly creepy face. He roams the junk alley, and it's unclear whether he's Stain's roommate or nemesis. As the main supporting character, Palvan is generally a jerk to everyone, including Stain. However, there are a few episodes where he shows moments of friendship towards Stain. There is one episode in particular called Binoculars that offers a glimpse of redemption for his character. It's so interesting to me that this show aired on a children's network in Japan, because although I first discovered it in middle school, I still find most episodes to be quite dark and sad, even as an adult. In the episode titled Toy Robot, Mr. Stain discovers a robot and its remote control in the junk alley. While playing with it, the robot unexpectedly gains consciousness and rejects being controlled by taking the remote from Stain and smashing it. Through video, the robot expresses to Stain that it wishes to fly. Stain tries to help the robot fulfill this desire by inventing various devices like a propeller, balloons, and even a rocket, but all attempts fail. What stands out most about this episode is its ending. The robot eventually accepts that it'll never achieve its dream of flying. It rebuilds its remote control and seems to lose consciousness, resigned to its fate. And that's how it ends. Depressing, right? However, the saddest episode for me is Human, where Mr. Stain discovers a malnourished, abandoned baby in the junk alley. Initially shocked and disturbed, Mr. Stain covers the baby with a pot and runs away, but soon returns, realizing he can't abandon it. Desperate to feed the baby, Stain leaves the junk alley for the first time and robs a store for food and toys. Later, while trying to feed the baby, a police officer arrives, searching for Stain after witnessing the robbery. Stain then realizes to his horror that the baby is dead. A glowing butterfly, representing life, emerges from the baby's body and Stain chases it, still hoping to save the baby. The butterfly flies into the officer, who swats at it, crushing it. Stain, in a fit of rage, attacks the officer, who retaliates by brutally beating Stain and eventually, in true police fashion, pow-powing him. In a final desperate act, Stain gives the butterfly from his mouth to the baby, sacrificing his life. Miraculously, the baby begins to cry and Stain smiles before collapsing dead. Palvin, who has been napping nearby this entire time, finds Stain's body, notices that he landed on the officer, killing him, and then captures the life butterfly of the police officer. In a strange but uncharacteristically relieving twist, the next day or so, the baby is now alive and happy, and Stain is somehow resurrected. And that's what I mean when I say he can be sweet sometimes. And even though this is one of the sadder episodes, there's a rare moment of happiness at the ending, and the ending theme feels appropriate for once. By the way, I totally recommend that you watch each of these episodes. They are very interesting. Also, don't forget to like this video. The finale of Mr. Stain on Junk Alley, titled Harmonica, was intended to be a romantic story, but for me, it came across as kind of strange. But I love the ending song. In the finale, Mr. Stain tries to romance a girl who lives in a high-rise apartment above the junk alley. I didn't mention it earlier, but another one of Mr. Stain's notable characteristics is that he is a lover boy. He falls madly in love a few different times in this series, with both sentient and non-sentient love interests, which is really endearing, although strange. This love story is really sweet because Stain has moments of insecurity and self-doubt where we see him losing confidence, realizing that the woman he's in love with would probably never see him as a respectable partner, which is extremely valid because he lives in the junk alley and she lives in a pretty high-rise apartment right above it, literally out of his reach. And it wouldn't be very sprinkle if she dated him. If you know, you know. But that's where the bizarre storyline picks up. The plot introduces an alter ego of Stain, a more attention-seeking version called Handsome Stain, who comes from a mirrored reality and becomes his rival for the girl's affection. Handsome Stain somehow traps our Stain in the mirror and then tortures him by romancing the love interest and practically steals her away. And I don't know about this girl, but a man popping up on my balcony, handsome or not, is actually one of my greatest fears. While the finale is just as bizarre as the rest of the series, spoiler alert, our stain is in-game. And for some reason, this girl lets a random man off the street into her apartment, which, as I mentioned, is so weird and concerning. But again, the ending song is really good. Mr. Stain on Junk Alley is like a nightmare-fueled fever dream that I find myself returning to unexpectedly. Despite being a quirky and silly short show, I think it has a lot of quality and value. I appreciate its dark and sad stories, and with a bit of hesitation, I recommend it. But let me know in the comments, have you ever heard of Mr. Stain on Junk Alley? What are your thoughts or impression of this series? Is me telling you about it the first year ever hearing about it? Me and my sister discovered it because our parents had accidentally or not purchased the Japanese channel back when, cable was a thing. And the advertisement for this show would always come on playing its theme song. And the theme song was so catchy, we just had to Google it. It used to be available completely on YouTube, but now I'm not sure how to find the complete series. If you know, help a girl out and let me know, please. But that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please take a look at my other uploads in the playlist linked in the description below. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys later. Bye.